Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Super Average People. On today's episode, I interview Mum, or Cheryl, whatever you want to call her. And this is really relevant for me because because of Mum and her story and what her gifts have given to me, I wouldn't be sitting here right now trying to share the messages I am trying to share, and I wouldn't be the person I am today. So her story definitely is important to me and something I want to share. Recently I was doing a course called Living in the Gift with Charles Eisenstein, and one of the questions to reflect on was, who showed us how to give, or, it was something like that. And I remember thinking straight away of my mum, and despite all the struggle and hardship for our family, she never stopped loving, ever. I don't think I have ever seen her get bitter. And also she would always give. Sometimes it'd be a bit annoying because she'd just give all our stuff away. But it was really great because she could just see how much it would make someone else happy. And so she would just want to give that to them, even if it meant, she would have less or whatever. But she's always really recognised that what's the point of hoarding and you being okay, but other people not being okay. So I love that lesson, and I hope that you can see these. It was big. You can see and feel these themes through her story.
So I am Cheryl. My name is Cheryl. My grandkids call me Shezza, and I am a mum, I am a grandma, I am many things, but most of all I think I try to be myself. I remember being a very extroverted, sort of fun-loving child who loved animals and loved people, but in saying that, there was also a very painful, difficult side to my childhood that it was just difficult. It was very, in some ways, traumatic, but very difficult. I remember very clearly going, well, who am I? I've come from this place where it was quite full of dysfunction and trauma and pain to, well, now I'm a young woman, what do I do with that? And I remember thinking, I just want to know what it's like not to be rejected, and to be loved and appreciated just for being me. I think you can have certain experiences that are quite traumatic and stuff that really get you craving to belong and to be part of something bigger than yourself. And at that age, I think I just wanted to be part of a family that worked better than what mine was. I remember just craving that, and I think, the typical story where you go looking for it in all the wrong places because that's familiar to you. And it was familiar to me to find people who would treat me the way I was telling myself my story was. So I thought it would be quite normal to be with someone who would treat me bad because that's what I just didn't know anything apart from that. When I was 17, I ended up in a very, very destructive, painful, traumatic domestic violence relationship where I thought emotional and physical abuse was just okay because I had known that. I was used to it. I'd seen it. I'd experienced it. So I think, because looking back in hindsight, I can see how that happened, but at the time I couldn't. But I remember feeling that this does feel a bit normal, so this must be okay. I had my first 2 children in that relationship. When I was pregnant with my oldest child, I remember just wanting and craving, no, I can't be this messed up and have a child, but I need to find something better. I need to find out how to do this better. I've got a child coming now and I need to. So I started to observe people and watch people, and I started to, just whatever snippets I've got of things to try and to be able to offer something better to my children than I had myself. And but at the same time, I was also brought up with the belief that, well, if you're with someone, you've got to stay with them. And there wasn't as many services and programs that offered support around that stuff either, and I never saw any of it until you wouldn't see any signs that said, domestic violence hotline. There was nothing like that. And to be honest, I didn't really know what domestic violence was. I was pinned down by that person, and because they were paranoid, I was talking about them, and they pinned me down and with their knees and just literally bashed the living crap out of me. And I remember thinking, no, I'm going to die if I stay here, and who's going to look after my 2 kids? Put a plan together where I could run away, and I told some lies and did what I could to make sure that I just took 1 bag of clothes. I had 6, I remember clearly having 6 nappies and 3 changes of clothes each. I spent the next 4 years running away from that person and trying to provide safe housing for myself and the two children. And so I had to do a lot of that on my own and just try and find my way navigate my way through all the emotion and stuff. During that time, the kids were kidnapped into state, and federal police had to find them and bring them back. And that was really difficult because I didn't know if I was ever going to see them again, if they were going to be alive. And I was beside myself, didn't know what to do, and didn't have a lot of supports. And so I think I just, just fought. And look, how beautiful is this? I just found this solicitor who doesn't deal with family law or domestic violence or anything like that. And he did a lot of work pro bono for me, and we were able to he worked with the federal police to be able to help find the kids and get them back. And to this day, I remember that man very clearly and his name, and I'm so grateful because I don't know if I would have got the kids back without his help and support and the support of the police at the time. I think to go back to being a child, even though it was difficult, I think there was just somehow I had a faith that I always haven't turned to, or I always haven't acknowledged that there's something bigger than myself. And I think in the moments that I have become aware, the moments that I found strength to actually do something about different things. I remember when I was a little girl seeing a movie, because on Easter and Christmas they used to put on these beautiful movies about, there were Bible stories and God stories and different things like that. And, out of context, and that's okay. But there was something, what I got from all those movies was the message of love, and that there's something bigger than this story I'm in, this picture I'm in. And I've never blamed that love or blamed, because I see that we all make choices. It's always been clear to me that people make choices, including myself. Even though it's been difficult to make good ones sometimes, I've always known that there's a lot of power in choice. And so I've never really been angry at that love for the things that have happened, but when I've had an awareness of that, it's empowered me to do better. And so, but I thought to myself, I've got to do better, and I've got to give better, and I've got to somehow find within myself the strength to just navigate my way into a better lifestyle of living. And so I went back to high school, and I remember having to, at that time when you went back as an adult student, you had to wear uniforms. So I remember pushing the 2 kids in a pram to high school. It was hilarious. And but and I don't think we all have to have education to do well, but for me, I knew that was the path I needed to take. I needed to start to get educated around some stuff, not just education for work, but life education too. I needed to find some resources that would help me do better. And I ended up in a weird church for a while, and I didn't stay that long, but they did family really well, and I learned a lot about how to start being a better mother, how to show love to my kids, how to even say that I loved my kids to them. I'd say I love you to my kids, because that was difficult for me to do, because I didn't have any memory of that for myself, so I wasn't quite sure how to say it even. I'd been on my own for years, and then I met someone else, and because we all went to church, I thought it was going to be great, because even though I'd been through a lot of horrible experiences, I was a bit naive to think that, oh yes, a man in the church is going to be great. That's just, what I thought it was going to be, and that didn't work either. But in that relationship, then I had 2 more children. There was still domestic violence in that relationship, and it didn't take me long to realise, after a couple of 4 years that lasted, and I just knew that this isn't right, it's not good for my family. And so I found myself as a single parent of 4 great kids. But there were a lot of issues involved from the things that had happened. Even though I was trying to do better, people still got hurt. When I realised I was on my own with the 4 kids, I thought, you know what, I'm not good enough for these 4 kids. I'm so broken, I don't think I can actually offer them one broken parent. And so I thought, I'm out. So I thought, is there any point of me living? Because if I wasn't here, then they'd actually probably go to a better home and be better provided for and all that stuff. I'm glad that I didn't do that because of all the wonderful and beautiful things that have happened since. But in that moment when you first look at, well, I've got 4 kids who rely on me to get them through life and to give them the skills they need to do life, and I haven't got a lot of support, what am I going to do? And I think that's when I really started to look at my faith a bit more. It was something for me that was really deep inside. And so I started doing a theology degree. It included some counselling and some other things, and then I thought to myself, once I started studying, I thought, oh, hang on, I've still got all this baggage, I've still got all this stuff, I've still got all this trauma. And it was wonderful because I took myself to a psychologist, and I saw that psychologist on and off for 5 years. And one of the most beautiful salt of the earth human beings I'd ever met. One of the best decisions I ever made for myself and my family, because that was really the beginning. Even though I'd been reading some self-help books and trying to educate myself and trying to look at how people were doing families so I could do it better, I thought, I don't want to go into working with helping people without owning some of my own stuff and starting to work through it. So on and off for 5 years, did some, had to work through a lot of big stuff. I had to look at some stuff, had to feel a lot of stuff, had to sit with a lot of stuff. But I knew that process had to happen, not just because I was going to be working with other people, it was because I needed to do that for myself. And one thing I did learn from that psychologist is that, the best gift you can give your children is a healthy you. So it's actually worth doing the work. I just didn't realise how long it was going to take. And, one of the things I've been trying so hard to do my whole time I've been a parent is to break the cycles of generational stuff that's been passed down, to say, this stops here. And even though that takes a while and it might still take another generation or 2, I've really worked hard at doing that. Personal healing is, people disconnect from the fact that personal healing has nothing to do with healing the planet. When in fact it has everything to do with healing the planet. Because for me, the state of our planet at the moment is a reflection on our lack of connection with ourselves, with each other, and with something bigger than ourselves. And that might be, it doesn't matter, it's God to me, but it might be whatever it is for anyone else. It doesn't matter. Whatever is God to you is God to you. For me, it's God, and it is the God in the Bible, which people struggle with because people have been taught so poorly around what the Bible is. If I had not been on the process of healing the emotional things in my life, I would not be able to be in a space where I could be passionate about healing the planet. There's a strong connection, because if we are connected to ourselves and each other and something bigger than ourselves, we see that we're all one on one planet. We're all one consciousness, and the planet is included in that. And if we can't love who we are, the good and the not so good, and love each other, regardless of whether we think the other person's worthy of it or not, because we have no right to judge if another person's worthy of love or not. If we can't do those things well, how can we love and look after the planet well? The biggest thing I've learned in my life is that not everything's about me. It's about much more than that. It's about I think the parts that are about me are the parts that I've had to learn to love all of me, the parts that are great and fun, beautiful, and, you know, it's easy to love those things about yourself because they're really positive, but it's so important to love the parts of you that aren't so good, to look at the things you've done and the mistakes you've made and to love that part of yourself too, because that's what brings healing to those things. Thank goodness I actually got to learn it, because my self-loathing and my thoughts about myself in my trauma were just, I didn't think it was even worth being around. So to do the work, to be present with myself and my pain, has brought me to a place of being able to love all of me, not just the good stuff. I think it's also then opened up my heart and doors for me and to do other things that I'm passionate about doing. One of the gifts I have is the capacity for forgiveness, the capacity to love, even though I really didn't know what that was for a long time. I think some of the other gifts is that I'm able to look at people, even the people that a lot of people find really ugly and gross and don't fit in their comfortable box. I feel that I have been given this gift of being able to see look into the eyes of another human being and just know that they are enough and that they are beautiful regardless of what they have done also, and the judgments that other people in society might put on them because they might be different or outside the box. I think I've been able to, a gift from the things I've been through is being able to give back that gift to somebody else too, to be able to see what I've been able to see and learn. The people that have inspired me and continue to inspire me in my life, some are alive, some are not. First of all, I think of my grandma. I love my grandma. She was incredible, incredible human being. I think she really inspires me. She had the capacity to get through life and still be a loving human being as well, even though she had her own traumatic experiences. And I felt an unconditional love from my grandma without judgment. And even when I stuffed up and made mistakes, she never made me feel shame or guilt about it. She created a space for me to just be her granddaughter. God to me is about ultimate love. And God is not just God like up there. God is in here. God is within and without and in everything. Even the ants, like when I see ants crawling on the ground and working together in community to even drag a piece of food across a footpath, to me God is even in that. And we have disasters like the bushfires and other things that happen, and that is because, people say, well, where's God and all that? But God gave us this beautiful planet to live on and has trusted us as custodians of it. And we're not looking after it. Like, it's when you trust somebody with something special, a beautiful gift, you're hoping that they'll look after it and appreciate it, right? And I think that the earth is a beautiful gift that we've been given to live on, but we haven't treated it with the love and respect it deserves. I don't hold on to material things tightly, because I believe that what we have isn't just ours. It is what we have, even if we have little. I feel like it's ours to share, because it really, do we own anything? And so I've never found it difficult to give away things or to share food when I haven't had much in the cupboard, or to give away bits of furniture when I haven't had much myself, because if someone's got none at all, because even if I've got some and they got none at all, to share at least, then we both have a little bit. So I've always thought like that. The thing that gives me the greatest joy is seeing my kids do well. In spite of what they've been through, and they've got their own things to overcome and work through as a result of life, which we all do. But the ultimate joy is when your kids are doing okay. They're okay with who they are. They're on that journey, and to just recall the moments of giving birth to them, and just that is joy. And even above that again is the experiencing God in all God's love and fullness is my ultimate joy. And sometimes it's hard to articulate the words around that, and sometimes it's not even a feeling, and sometimes you can go long periods of time without even feeling that you're feeling God, but it's that knowing. And the other things that bring me joy are my grandchildren. When their skin's on your skin, when they're smiling at you, and and I always thought, I don't want to be a grandma, but the experience of being a grandma has brought me so much joy that I can't even articulate that very well either. And what a gift it is to be a grandparent. Another thing that gives me joy, and probably the last thing that I would put in the joy category, is nature, and being out in nature on my own. Totally on my own in nature brings me a lot of joy. And hearing birds sing, and watching birds play, and I get a lot of joy out of watching birds, just sitting still and watching how they interact with each other, and animals too. The Camino in Spain, there's many Caminos, but the main one is the Camino Francis in Spain, and it's a pilgrimage. And it's quite a long pilgrimage. It starts on the border of France and Spain and goes all the way across the top of Spain to Santiago. And I've been on the Camino. I've walked the first one 700 Ks. The second one I didn't walk as many Ks, but it's still a lot of Ks. I think it was about 600. It's quite a miracle in itself that I went to the Camino, because I used to be so terrified of flying on planes. Absolutely shocking. It was one of my worst fears. But about 5 years ago, there was a period of time leading up to it where there was a lot of trauma. We had some additional trauma added to our family. And one was an incident in my workplace where my trauma was sort of coming to a boil. And my son was hit by a car, and then my daughter was hit by a bus, and one of my daughters was hit by a bus, and then I was in a relationship with someone I absolutely, totally loved and adored, and that went pear-shaped, and he had a massive heart attack and cheated, and then not long after that my dad got cancer. And there was some family dynamics around that. And I found myself sitting on the veranda of a house that some amazing people had provided for me to live in, because they knew I was in a lot of pain. Just sitting there and I think I cried for 6 months straight. And during that 6 months, it was kind of strange, because things about the Camino, which I hadn't heard much about before, kept crossing my path. I knew a little bit about it, and there was a little bit, I thought, that'd be something nice to try. But it was almost like it started calling me, almost like it was, hey, Cheryl, come here, and I just went, I have to go. And cut long story short, some things happened in my life that worked out that I could actually go. So when it worked out financially, I could. I booked a ticket, got my gear, and off I went to Spain by myself on a plane and walked the Camino. And that became a new platform from which for me to leap off into life from, and to start doing some other things that I wanted to do. And so it's crazy going, because I was just like, I don't know what this means even. I don't even know why I'm going, but I know I need to go, because that's what the message I just felt very clearly deep within my soul that I was called to go to Spain that first time and walk the Camino. I started to learn on the Camino a lot about myself, how I do things well and how I do things not so well, what things I might need to look at changing in my life for the better, some things I needed to start accepting about myself, and most of all, letting go. Because I'd spent so many years trying to heal this, trying to do that, and then all of a sudden I thought, it's not so much about trying as much as it is about letting go. I made some beautiful friends who I love very dearly. Those people who I engage with, just love, there's this unconditional love and friendship that you just don't experience in other places. I went again on the Camino, and I felt there was some unfinished stuff to do. And there was a little bit, nothing like the first time. But there's also a hunger to go back. I would love to spend a good 6 months on the Camino and write a book. I'm not quite sure what the book would be about, but I'd want it to be something that was hopeful and inspiring and that would help other people, find something that they could use in their experience of moving on in their lives. Pain is something that can't be dealt with overnight. We live in a society where we want instant gratification. So first of all, when I think about pain, I think it's about something that it's not something you go, well, I'm going to see a therapist once and I'm going to be all good, or I'm just going to go have a cry once and I'm going to be. It's not like that. And for me, I have been on this process and journey for a long time of befriending my suffering and sitting with it to the point where I can appreciate what it's got to teach me. But befriending my suffering and not fighting it, but allowing it to be what it is within, has given me a greater understanding and compassion for myself and for others. And even in the context of like counselling, how I see suffering now and how I'm able to draw from my own experience of suffering to be used for some love and acceptance and to help other people sit with their suffering in a way that's gentle but hopeful. Is also something I've learned from my own suffering. So when I think of the Camino, and what else also that's led me to is I've wanted to have a lifestyle that's more contemplative. And so in contemplative, I mean not just mindfulness. Mindfulness is part of it, and there's other practices that are part of it. But the experience of the Camino created in me a desire for something deeper. And so I am now part of the Living School program in Albuquerque in America. It's more about being still, being with God in such a contemplative and meditative way that whatever you do in your life, whether it be working around issues of climate change, being in a counselling practice, whatever it means, you do it from a place of love and being centred. I've always wanted to have my own counselling practice, but I've just gone, you do some of that negative self-talk, like, who do I think I am? With all the stuff I've done in my life and, all that negative stuff, you just go, who do I think I am that I can have my own practice and do this thing? But then it kicks in that you remember, actually, it's not about you. It's more than about you. It's a bigger picture. It's about the people that you'll be with. It's about healing, which is not just an individual thing, but it's a community and a global thing, healing. So it's being part of that. It's not just about me. So you're reminded of all the rich lessons you've learnt too and what you're able to give back to others from working through your own trauma and your own issues in life. And even though I fought the thoughts and didn't like the challenge of thinking about opening my own practice, I thought, well, you know what, it's now or never. Well, not never, but it's probably now is a good time to think about doing my own thing. So I decided to offer my own counselling practice in town. It includes counselling, art therapy and clinical supervision. It's called Sage Counselling, and it's about, Sage is about wisdom, and not just my wisdom that's been given to me by my experiences and not just education, but through my own personal experiences, but also the wisdom of all the generations that have been before us, and the wisdom of the love of God. It's very much part of who I am, and to me it's about love. That's really about love. And it's time to take that step and just trust the universe with the process. The feedback has been beautiful. People love that there's a space where they feel they can come and not be judged about anything that they share, that they feel accepted, and they feel that it just feels, I think the most common word is safe. And, my ultimate goal for myself and for everybody that I have engagement with is that people do feel loved, feel safe, and feel that they are enough. It's been great, and it's been great to see that it's not just because of my efforts, but because of everyone who's been engaged in my life in a positive and loving way. But I am proud of the things that I've been able to achieve in my life, regardless of the obstacles that have been thrown my way. I am really proud of my 4 kids. I'm extremely proud of them and how they are trying to navigate their way through life the best they can. I wish the world knew how much each individual, each community, each country knew how much they were valued and loved and accepted. I wish we all knew, though, how beautiful and wonderful this amazing planet is that we have to live on. I've made some choices around climate change, and I know I've got a long way to go, but I choose not to have a motor vehicle now. So me making choices like that, and even like with composting, and which is, a lot of that credit goes to my son, but composting and recycling and just doing a little, and not using heaps of water just because we think we can, and just to live simply, so because we can make a difference in our love for the planet by just making those simple choices. We say, well, the governments need to do this, and they do. The governments in many countries, including ours, need to get off their bums and do something more about climate change. But we all have the power and the responsibility to do it at an individual level as well. I want to keep working towards doing something from a loving space about climate change. At the moment, I'm reading some of Joanna Macy's stuff and trying to put together some things around climate change for the local Climate Change Council people, because there's a lot of grief and loss around climate change. We only have to see that with the bushfires and all the loss of life and animals and wildlife and different things. There's a lot of grief around that. If we actually are serious about it and look at that and sit with it, it's painful. So I want to put together some workshops and some material that will help people work through that. The reason I think it's important for me, where I'm at, to put something together around grief and loss and stuff with climate change is because if we haven't learnt to even sit with our own stuff personally, like our own issues, work through some healing with that, it's going to be difficult to accept that there's this stuff going on with the planet. And we need to be patient and gracious and loving and understanding when people aren't on the same journey with that. But if people are able to work, because when we heal ourselves, we are actually healing the planet, and we've just disconnected ourselves from that, but it's a reality. So there is an urgency. There's no doubt about it when we look at the state of Australia at the moment, with half of it on fire and what we've lost, and there is an urgency. But a lot of what we've always done in society is gone urgency, so we need to do. And we put Band-Aids on everything, and we just go, yeah, okay, that's fine for now. The reason why I want to do it from a contemplative, loving space is because I know it's going to be more of a better decision. It's not going to be a Band-Aid. It's going to be something that has a more long-term effect. It's easy to keep following what we've always done and do things really fast because something's urgent. But if we actually slow ourselves down, we actually will get more done and more effectively. We just have believed as a society we need to be busy, and that's what creates successful outcomes. When actually I'm going for the opposite. I want it to be that we come from a meditative, contemplative space that's loving and kind, and then we go out and make changes and do something about the things that are urgent. And it sounds wrong and it sounds like it's not going to work, but I really truly believe, when Joanna Macy talks about the Great Turning, and everyone will need to read that book, Active Hope, to work out what that is. And I hear Richard Raw talk about the reordering. I think those things are happening, and I have an absolute trust and love that the universe has our back on this, but we have to play our part. We don't just say, yes, that's got our back. We say, yes, but we need to play our part.